Hello everyone. Today we are going to check how to deploy a website to AWS S3 bucket with free SSL certificate. To do so, we have identified a list of things to be done. The very first thing in our checklist is to create and configure S3 bucket. Let's proceed with the same. Now, I have opened up the console in AWS, that is about AWS S3, Amazon S3 as you can see. Here we are going to create a bucket inside which we will be hosting our website. I'll simply go ahead with the default region. Here, the name of the bucket is very important. I would like to give the name of the bucket as whatever will be the domain of my website. So I'm going to give it the domain as free. This will be my subdomain dot para development dot online. So this para development dot online is my domain and free is my subdomain. So this is how the name of the bucket will be provided. Remember, this is a very important step in our deployment process. Next, I'll not change anything and let's proceed. I'll remove this checkbox of block all public access because we want our website to be public, and hence let's remove this checkbox. Let's go ahead and acknowledge it that we are okay with removing the checkbox. Let's check what's here. Nothing needs to be changed, and let's go ahead and create the bucket. All right, our bucket is created. Let's check what do we have. Here we will need to make some changes. Let's go to properties. Now in this properties, we are going to enable this bucket to host a website. So let's go scroll down, and over here as you can see static website hosting is disabled. Let's enable the same. Now over here we need to specify what will be my index document. I'll put index.html, sorry, index, and over here it's an optional thing to define what will be my error HTML document. Let me put it error.html and nothing more. Let's save the changes. All right, let's go ahead and configure the permissions. It doesn't have any bucket policy, so let me put a bucket policy. So here I am pasting a bucket policy. I will have this bucket policy available in the description section. So here it was free dot para development dot online. So the policy is to tell the AWS that okay, we are good to have the permission for following objects. This is the resource against which we are allowing the following permissions. I'll do save changes over here. So far, our bucket is configured. We have just created and configured our S3 bucket. So the first step is done. Now let's proceed with the second step, wherein we want to generate and deploy website code to S3 bucket. So let's proceed with the same. To create and deploy a website, I am simply going to use index.html. Here, let me paste some basic HTML. So I've just introduced an h1 tag and nothing more. Let's save this and deploy it. To deploy, we must upload the index.html file to our bucket. Okay, it was successfully uploaded. Let's check how it looks. So I am again into the properties tab, scrolling right to the bottom. Here is the URL, copied it. Let me check. Okay, so the h1 tag with the HTML is rightly displayed. As you can see, here is the name of my bucket, and then following is the AWS path. Also, you can see it is a not secure website. We have successfully generated and deployed a website to S3. So step 2 is done. The next step is to create a free certificate using AWS Certificate Manager. Let's proceed with the same. To create a free certificate using AWS Certificate Manager, over here in the search, we must type Certificate Manager. Let's go to the Certificate Manager service. All right, I already have a list of certificates over here. Let me request yet another certificate. Let's hit request a public certificate. Let's go ahead. Here we must add the name of our website, that is free.paradevelopment.online. You can also add another name to the certificate. So when we say add another name, the subdomain can be different, but the domain should be the same. However, for our demo, we are only going to need the certificate for this particular subdomain. As I was mentioning, you can add the additional names to the certificate. Here is the example. So it reads, if you are requesting a certificate for www.example.com, you might want to add the name example.com so that customers can reach our website by either name. Okay, let's proceed. So we will need to validate this certificate. So we are going to proceed with DNS validation and then just request it. Okay, so it says successfully requested certificate with ID. Let's view the certificate. Okay, here it is. And as you can see, it is having the status pending validation. Now we have successfully created a free certificate using AWS Certificate Manager. So step 3 is done. But for us to use the certificate, we must verify the certificate using our domain. So for the sake of this demo, I'm going to use Namecheap. However, the same settings will be applicable in various domain providers. You can go ahead with GoDaddy or whatever other domain providers you have. So let's proceed with the certificate verification using Namecheap. To validate the certificate, let's go to the certificate list. Over here, as you can see, we have the newly requested certificate and the status is pending validation. Let's open this. The certificate has various things. We are interested in the CNAME name and the CNAME value. Let's copy it over. I'm going to copy it to Notepad++ window. And also let's copy the CNAME value. So we will need to use these values somewhere. In Namecheap, we will only require this part, the very first part, as the name, and from the value we will require the entire value. In other domain providers, you may need to enter the entire part. Remember not to enter the full stop. So let me just copy this over. I've copied it, and let's go to namecheap.com. So over here, I'm into my domain, paradevelopment.online. In the advanced DNS settings, let me delete the existing CNAME record. It doesn't really matter, but let's remove it. And I'm going to add a new CNAME record. All right, so the host is this part, the one that I have just copied. It is this one, and the value is going to be this part. So why did we skip this? Because Namecheap automatically appends the domain name at the end. In some of the providers, the domain name may not be automatically updated. You may need to add this by yourself. All right, let's go back. I'll just hit save changes. Okay, this is done. Let's go back to the certificate manager. It will take some time to propagate the DNS entry. And once the DNS entry is propagated, over here, the status would be issued. So it usually takes between 24 hours and 48 hours. However, a lot of times it also takes less than an hour. It really depends on how it works. So we'll come back after having the DNS propagation done. The DNS propagation is now done, and as you can see, the status is issued for this particular certificate. So you are successfully able to verify the certificate using domain name in our Namecheap account. Step 4 is done. Now the next step is to create and configure AWS CloudFront service to point to our S3 bucket, which hosts our website. Let's proceed with the same. To create a CloudFront distribution to point to our S3 bucket, we must propagate to CloudFront service in AWS. I'm already on CloudFront. To go over there in the services search, you must search for CloudFront. So I've already selected the CloudFront. Here we will go ahead and create a distribution. In the create distribution window, here we option to choose the origin domain. We are going to choose the S3 which is hosting our website, that is free.paradevelopment.online. As soon as I hit this, I get an option to use the website endpoint. I will click this. We will keep the remaining settings as is in this section. The name should be the same. Let's check what do we have in additional settings. We are not going to touch this part. About viewer policy, we are going to redirect all the HTTP to HTTPS, and the HTTP methods that we are going to allow are get, add, and options. Let's scroll down. We are going to use the same cache policy as recommended. Let's see what we have in the additional settings. We are not going to touch anything over here. About WAF protection, we don't want that. About the edge locations, we can choose whatever fits best to our needs. I'm going to choose only North America as my bucket is in North Virginia region. Here we will add a CNAME free.paradevelopment.online, and over here we will choose the certificate that we have just created. It is free.paradevelopment.online. Certificate is good. We are not going to touch any other parts. Let's create a distribution. It is getting created in the background. All right. Now we are getting propagated to the list of distributions. Still loading. All right. We are not on the list. However, we are on the distribution which we just created. And over here, as you can see, alternate domain names is showing the name of our website, and also it is having the custom SSL certificate available. Let's use this. Okay, the CloudFront is not yet pointing to our S3 bucket. It may take a couple of minutes. As you can see, we have successfully pointed our CloudFront to the S3 bucket. So this is the URL of my CloudFront, and as you can see, there is no certificate error. If we go to the URL of S3, we are having the URL name with the S3, and there is a certificate error. So CloudFront is correctly pointing to the S3 bucket where we are hosting our website. We have successfully executed the fifth point in our checklist to create and configure an AWS CloudFront to point to S3 bucket. Now, the last step is to point your domain to the AWS CloudFront. Let's proceed with the same. To point our domain to our newly created distribution, we will copy over the name of the distribution, that is the URL, and let's go to our domain provider. I am on Namecheap again. So I am on to my domain, paradevelopment.online. Over here, let's create a new CNAME record. Host will be free, as this is my subdomain. And over here, I'll be pasting the CloudFront URL. without HTTPS. Okay, now it is configured correctly. It will take some time to propagate the DNS setting. Let's check it. b.paradevelopment.online. It is not propagated yet. It may again take anywhere between 24 hours and 48 hours, but most of the times it takes way less than 24 hours. So we'll come back once the DNS propagation is done. As you can see, the DNS is successfully propagated, and now our index.html is being served by this particular URL. As you can see, it is an HTTPS URL. So the final step to point your domain to the AWS CloudFront is done as well. So in this video, we saw how to create and configure an S3 bucket, generate and deploy the website code to S3. We used a simple index.html. However, you can use other frameworks like Angular and so on to create the distributables. And eventually, the entry point would be index.html. Then we saw how to create a free certificate using AWS Certificate Manager. Next, we saw how to verify the certificate using domain name in Namecheap. Similar steps can be followed for other domain providers. Just the value of the CNAME and the name of the CNAME will be different based on the domain provider. Next, we saw how to create and configure an AWS CloudFront 2.2 S3 bucket. And lastly, we saw how to point your domain to the AWS CloudFront. This was all about this particular demo. Thank you for watching it. If you found this demo useful, please like our video and subscribe our channel. Thank you.